Artificial intelligence. It's something that's been following us around for a little under 70 years, ever since this guy created this guy and won us World War II. We should be thanking him in his creation, but instead, artificial intelligence has become one of the most controversial topics in the modern world. People praise it and fear it in equal amounts, and because science is more often interested in the can we rather than the should we are forced to turn to the humanities. In other words, to stories. Wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. What even is AI? Encyclopedia Britannica states that AI is the ability of a digital computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. The term is frequently applied to the project of developing systems endowed with the intellectual processes characteristic of humans, such as the ability to reason, discover meaning, generalize, or learn from past experience. Basically, EB is saying that AI is robots that mimic humans, and that idea makes us nervous. Computers do what we want them to do, but the minute we give them free will is the minute they're able to do what we don't want them to do. Questions pop up. Questions like, is it safe to create something with a conscience? We worry that we will create something with intelligence and without empathy, free will without morality. So we write stories where we create something with both. It didn't start out this way, at least not in film. Metropolis, made in 1927 by Fritz Lang, is a 2.5-hour movie about a robot destroying the titular city. The robot is a copy of a real woman, pushing the idea that AI is just an attempt to mimic humanity, something all too separate from us. The next few films featuring AI followed in much the same vein, including 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, about HAL 9000, the AI system of a spaceship and its deliberate attempts to jeopardize the mission and kill the humans on board.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Humanity eventually turned from this fear, however, and instead looked inwards. As we grew used to blooming technology, we began to question our roles in it more, and we began to make connections with what we once saw as too other to be good. In other words, we began to recognize the humanity in what we created. AI, Artificial Intelligence, released in 2001, is a film directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, that guy again. Released after Kubrick's death in 1999. The film is about an android named David, the first android programmed to love and made to be sold as a sort of replacement for childless couples. A couple adopts a prototype David, and they grow to love him as their own. He can't stay their child forever though, and the film culminates in David being abandoned and subsequently journeying across the country. While he meets robots and humans alike, all he wants is to get back to his mother, because he has been programmed to love her, even if she doesn't love him back. It's a heartbreaking film, and one that asks the questions humanity so longs to have answered. What right do we have to create something like this? What responsibilities do we have towards something with a conscience? Are they children? Are they pets? The film forces the audience to confront their fears of AI and what role they have in creating the monsters they fear so much.
They hate us, you know. The humans.
The funny thing is, these aren't new questions. In fact, they're the very same questions posed in 1812 by a woman by the name of Mary. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a Gothic horror published at the beginning of the Regency period in England, about a young college student who creates life by shocking a bunch of dead body parts he's stitched together. When he flees, terrified in the wake of his creation, He leaves this creature to find his way through the world, alone. The creature, finding the world to be cruel to him due to his position as the other, turns towards murder and vengeance. The text asks us whether Frankenstein or the creature is at fault, and our sympathies for the creature point us towards the man. What does this have to do with AI, you ask? Well, answer this. Would the novel have progressed as such if the characters have read it themselves? Paradoxical, I know. But seriously, had Frankenstein read Frankenstein, would he still have abandoned his creation? Or would he have begun to see him as human and have sympathy and love for him? I'm inclined to choose the latter, and I think that is exactly what AI, artificial intelligence, and many other stories are doing for AI. Instead of fearing the other, as we did with Metropolis, we're beginning to see the humanity in our creations. Subsequently, we're more inclined to attach ourselves to them instead of run away. AI, artificial intelligence, was originally meant to be a Kubrick film, not a Spielberg. He had been waiting to make it until technology was good enough for him to have an actual AI play David, but he died before any such thing was even close to existing. Spielberg took the helm, and Haley Joel Osment was cast instead. It could be argued that had Kubrick been successful, the film would have had an effect similar to Open Sorcery, a game in which you play as an AI created to protect a small circle of people from dangerous and often malevolent elementals. The game simulates what it would mean to be an AI, as you play as one, and an actual AI sometimes takes over the dream portion of the game, making it all the more real. The ability to see an actual robot act the way a human does would speak to us in ways just watching a human pretend to be a robot never will. But the lack of a real robot doesn't detract from the message of the film, how robots can be like humans in our responsibility to them, and thus isn't missed. Open Sorcery, on the other hand, is about how we can be like robots. We are in the robot's world. To consume games requires a much higher level of activity and engagement than watching a film. This increases the ability to empathize with the characters exponentially, because we are much more personally involved. This generation has grown up with so many different kinds of AI that playing as one is almost familiar, and the goal isn't to get us used to AI anymore. It's to empathize as well as sympathize. Besides, AI, artificial intelligence, came out in 2001. I'm not quite sure the survivors of Y2K would have been so receptive to a real-life AI. Without these stories, even the ones about evil, scary robots destroying cities and murdering astronauts, humans never would have been able to evaluate and examine our fear in such a widespread manner, nor such a safe one. We would have been left to fear, and with no way to work it out. Because of stories, humanity has grown past its fear of AI. Now, only discovery awaits us. If we can ever trust the scientists, that is.